All right, so today we're diving into a really powerful book by Dr. Youssef El-Hassani. It's all about these invisible prisons we find ourselves in, the psychological complexes that can keep us trapped without us even realizing it.
The author kicks things off with this quote from Kafka, and it's basically a warning. This isn't a feel-good book. It's meant to be an axe, a tool designed to shatter all that frozen over stuff inside us, forcing us to look at the truths we've kept on ice for way too long. And this whole book came out of the author's own personal crisis. By every measure, he was a massive success, acing medical school, the son every parent dreams of. But then, something traumatic happened that just completely shook him up and forced him to ask this terrifyingly simple question. If you take away all the achievements, all the praise, who am I really? So that personal collapse led him to this big idea that so many of us are living inside invisible prisons. They're these walls we can't see or touch, but man, they hold us captive just the same.
And here's the really gut-wrenching part he discovered. His identity wasn't even his. Can you imagine that? Realizing that your dreams, your choices, your entire personality were basically just a performance you were putting on for your parents and for society, he'd completely lost who he was.
So how do these prisons even get built? Well, it all starts with what the book calls inherited blueprints. This is the mental programming we download before we're old enough to question any of it.
Dr. El-Hassani calls these intellectual inheritances. And a great way to think about it is like the pre-installed software on a new computer. You don't choose it, it's just there. It's all the unwritten rules, the collective fears, that's just how things are, beliefs we soak up from our culture that end up running our entire lives.
And this software gets installed through these simple, powerful little phrases we hear constantly. Shameful, forbidden, and oh, that classic one, what will people say? These aren't just words. They are the actual bricks and mortar that build the walls of our prison. Okay, so let's dig into how this programming creates these really distorted ideas about what it means to be a man or a woman and the damage that does. So for men, the script society hands them is often a total trap. It says you have to suppress your feelings, it confuses being aggressive with being strong, and it teaches you that your value comes from controlling people and things instead of from, your actual character. And you can see the devastating cost of this in the story of Hamad from the book. His dad taught him that getting beaten is what makes you a man. At school, he was mocked for being sensitive. So with no healthy way to process emotions, where did he turn to learn about life and intimacy? Pornography. And that just created this deeply twisted view of himself and relationships.
And for women, there is a trap running right alongside it. The script often says that your main goal in life is to get married, and that your value is all tied up in how you look. You're taught to just wait for a man to come along and liberate you, instead of being taught to go out and liberate yourself.
I mean, just look at Miriam's story. She had this dream of studying abroad, but her own father basically said her freedom was conditional. It would be granted by her future husband. So what happened? She spent years of her life just waiting, in this holding pattern, for some guy to give her permission to live a life she could have been building the whole time. So what happens when these broken scripts completely destroy our sense of inner worth? We start scrambling. We start looking for validation anywhere we can find it on the outside. We start chasing these false sources of worth. And that's when the big chase begins. We start running after money, power, fame, a certain look, more and more degrees, whatever it is, all in this desperate hope that this achievement, will finally be the thing that makes us feel whole. We start telling ourselves stories like, once I hit that certain number in my bank account, then I'll be worthy, then I'll feel valuable. But isn't it funny how that number always seems to get bigger the closer you get to it?
Or here's another one. We chase after degrees and titles to prove how smart we are. We start to mistake the piece of paper, the symbol of education, for the real goal, which is actual understanding.
And there's a fantastic line in the book that just hits the nail on the head. A degree proves you are educated, but it does not prove you understand. One is about checking a box, the other is about gaining real, actual wisdom. Okay, so if all that external stuff is just one big trap, how do we actually break free? Well, according to the book, the answer is in mastering the art of confrontation. Now, wait a second. When you hear the word confrontation, you're probably thinking about yelling, arguing, picking fights. Nope.
we have to redefine it. The book frames confrontation as this courageous act of preserving yourself. It's about setting boundaries, speaking your truth, and simply refusing to live by scripts that are hurting you.
And the really cool thing is, it's a skill you can learn. The book breaks it down into these, let's call them levels. You might start out with kindness, where you try to soften the boundary to not upset anyone. But you can learn to move up to clarity, just stating your position without feeling the need to explain yourself. Then you have questioning, which flips the script and makes them justify their unreasonable request. And finally, being decisive, a clear, firm, non-negotiable boundary. Because, and this is so important, the whole point of this isn't to win more arguments with people. The point is to stop losing the argument with yourself. It's about protecting your own soul and refusing to let yourself disappear just to keep everyone else happy.
And that brings us right back to where we started. For the author, this book was the axe for his frozen sea. So the final question it leaves us with is a really personal one. What frozen sea inside you needs to be broken?